What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who Classic Review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 4th Doctor Tom Baker story, The Leisure Hive. This is the first episode of Season 18, Tom Baker's final season, and it's a season that's quite divisive. Some people love it, some people kind of hate it. This is the last story, despite it being the first story of Season 18, this is the last one of the season that I had yet to watch. So now I've seen the whole season. For me, I don't love Season 18. I think it's a bit of a mess all over the place. Has a couple of good stories, but it also has a few fairly weak ones. Spoilers, this is one of them. But yeah, it's a story that's... this story is a story that pretty much everybody dislikes. I didn't know a whole lot about it going in. I just knew it was quite disliked. So maybe that had a little bit of a, effect on how I watch this one. But yeah, anyway, let's get started having a look at the back of the DVD. This is The Leisure Hive by David Fisher. The Doctor and Romana decide to forego Brighton Beach and take a much-needed holiday on the pleasure planet of Argolis. Ravaged decades ago by an interstellar war between the Argolin and the Famasi, Argolis now hosts the Leisure Hive, an ideal retreat for tourists from all over the cosmos, but a series of accidents leads the Doctor and Romana to discover that the Hive holds dark secrets. So, interesting enough kind of plot on the back of the DVD there. It's basically a planet where, it's just kind of like a holiday planet now. After, there was a war and now it's just this kind of holiday destination place. But there are other strange things going on. So, interesting enough premise. Let's get into it. Starting off with the cast, Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor. He's okay in this one. Season 18, Tom Baker is not the best. You can tell that he's not really getting on with the production team and everything. I don't think he really got on with JNT, who's taken over by this point. And yeah, just was kind of done with the role by this point. You can tell that in some places, even in this story. It's more noticeable in some others later on, but it is occasionally noticeable here that he just doesn't seem to quite have the enthusiasm. And that's also just the direction that JNT and all that decided to take with the show at this point. They kind of went away from what made the 4th Doctor the 4th Doctor, and it just didn't really work for Tom Baker. That is honestly one of the big things that I don't like about Season 18. It is the Doctor himself. I just don't think he's great. But yeah, Tom does fine enough in the performance, but you can definitely tell at times he just doesn't really care. When he ages partway through the story, he becomes really old. His performance then is okay, but he doesn't really put on an old performance. He's just kind of the same. He sounds the same, but he just looks older. So I think, yeah, in some ways, it's a bit of a half-assed performance by Tom in this one. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not one of his best. Lala Ward as Romana. Yeah, she's pretty good in this one. Nothing really much to say about her. I do quite like Romana as a character, especially, I say especially Romana 2. I haven't actually watched any of Season 16, so I haven't seen any of Romana 1. But yeah, Romana 2, Lala Ward, I think is great, and she does a pretty good job here. Right, so let's get on to some points about this episode. The longest opening shot of a beach I've ever seen. That opening shot went on forever. Now, this is a 4-part story, remember. Part 1, yeah, literally what feels like a quarter of the story is just this one long shot of the beach. And it's literally just panning down the beach. You see a couple of beach chairs and some little shacks. Some more chairs, some more shacks, some more chairs, more shacks, more chairs, more shacks. And then eventually, after what feels like about 3 minutes, we pan to the Doctor and Romana on chairs, and then Romana's, taking K9 down to the beach, and it's just that opening shot. I was just sat there this is still going. Is this ever going to end? It went on for so long. K9 blows up by going in the water. Yeah, that was interesting. They basically killed off K9 in this episode. Now, I think that is because JNT didn't like K9. Was that what it was? Have I just read that from somewhere, or is that just something that's come into my head? But I don't think he liked K9, so we thought, oh well, we'll basically just kill him off at the start of this story. Because I can't remember. Oh no, we do see him. We do see him in Full Circle, don't we? Although, from what I remember, doesn't he die there as well? I can't remember. I swear something happens to him there too. But It's been a while since I've watched that story. I think that's the next story. Or is Meglos the next story? I can't even remember. No, Meglos, I think, is the next one. Then it's full circle. But yeah, so K9 blows up. He literally, like, Romana throws a ball or something for him, and it goes into the water, and then he just goes in there and just, like, explodes, like, short circuits, and Romana, like, yells out a scream, K9, and it's kind of funny, to be honest. I've just written down a holiday planet. I guess I just wrote that down because I didn't know what else to write at this point, and that's when it's, you know, talked about that this Argolis planet is kind of like a holiday destination planet. So I thought, okay, interesting premise. I don't think they really did much to show it as a holiday planet, other than, you know, like at the start they had some people there watching these weird kind of shows with, you know, people with their arms coming off and all these weird kind of illusion, or what we thought were just illusions. So that was cool, but other than that, it didn't really do much to sell this as a holiday planet. They use this tachyon technology to do strange things, so that's a big thing of this story. The Argolans talk about how they have this tachyon technology, and they're talking with this, I think it's a guy from Earth actually, just a human, about this technology, and they're going on about like, oh, why is this guy helping us with this? He won't know anything about this technology, being from Earth and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it was an interesting premise, this whole technology thing, but ultimately just, I don't know, just didn't really do much with it, in my opinion. Someone dies in the machine by their limbs being ripped apart. So yeah, one of the Argolans, the kind of main guy who ends up really being the bad guy, he is the one showing off this thing, and then one of the, what I assume are humans, I don't know, they look like humans anyway, decides he's going to have a go in this machine. He goes in there and he gets ripped apart, and he's literally now just he's just a torso, and then his arms are separated, his legs are separated, his head's separated. It looks very strange, and that man has just died, and there's been a murder here, so that was interesting. The Argolans want to be able to reverse time to extend their lives. So then we kind of take this change. I guess it's all to do with this tachyon technology, all the different things they can do with this technology. And one of the things that they're trying to figure out is how to kind of reverse their lives so that they can live out longer, because it's mentioned that these Argolans, for whatever reason, I think it's got something to do with the war and radiation or something like that, that they don't last very long, and once they start dying, these like kind of like acorn things start dropping off their head, and then they kind of descend into, they start aging very quickly and die quite quickly as well once that starts happening. So they're trying to use this tachyon technology to make this machine that will make them younger again so they can live longer. So once again, it's a bit of a change of direction, but it's an interesting concept. The Doctor has aged in the machine, so then the Doctor goes into this machine, that the aging thing, but I guess it goes a bit wrong, and he, instead of getting younger, gets older, and he has a beard, and the makeup was not terrible, to be honest. I don't think it was that bad, but yeah, I just think Tom's performance didn't really go with the look, but yeah, it was interesting having the Doctor older, but ultimately didn't have a massive change on the story, massive impact. The Argolans are creating new people with the machine, so then we get onto this whole thing of, yeah, they're using this machine to create more people, basically. So once again, and this is kind of where the main bad guy, I can't remember his name, but the main bad guy of the story comes in. It turns out that he's kind of been, I think they mentioned that he's been kind of like cloning himself, and or no, he's somewhat figured out this machine, so he's actually getting young and it's working for him or whatever, something like that. I can't remember, but yeah, basically the Argolans are making more of themselves using this machine. The Famasi look pretty bad. So then we get onto the Famasi, which are these kind of lizardy, chameleon-y looking sort of creatures, who I thought were a much bigger part of this story, but we vaguely see them here and there throughout the story. But once they eventually come into it, they look terrible. They look awful. They are the most man in a suit alien in Doctor Who. Like, they look so bad. The actors seem like they're quite chubby, which isn't a problem, but it makes them look a bit silly, and the costumes just have wrinkles, and they're all like folded over, and they just look really crap. Why is the TARDIS not translating the Pharmacy? This is a question I had. Now, I'm pretty sure, like, the whole translating languages from the TARDIS, I don't think that's just a new series thing. It's brought up a lot in the new series, but I'm fairly sure that's always been a thing, hasn't it? Because, I mean, we've landed in strange, weird places throughout the classic series and been able to understand people, so I understand, even if it's not been mentioned, that I take it as that has always been a thing. In this case, though, the Pharmacy, when they initially start talking, we can't understand them. They're speaking a completely different language. Eventually, I think they turn some people into Pharmacy. Like, I'm pretty sure it's that Earth guy, that British Earth guy gets turned into a Pharmacy or something, and then he starts talking. But he's talking in his own voice, and my God, can I just say that my partner wasn't really watching this episode with me, but she was just kind of around when I was watching it. She just came and looked at the screen while the guy, as the Pharmacy, was talking in the British accent, and she was just like, she started cracking up laughing, and I couldn't help but crack up as well. It was so ridiculous, this silly lizard chameleon-y creature thing talking in a posh British accent. It was so silly. Pangolin duplicating himself to create an army. So yes, that is the name of the evil guy, Pangolin. He duplicates himself to create an army of his own people, basically, cloning himself once again. So that's an interesting concept. However, the Doctor made all the duplications himself, because I think the Doctor went into the machine as Pangolin was trying to clone all these people. It turned out, instead of cloning himself, he ended up cloning the Doctor. So now there's a million Doctors everywhere. That's also apparently gotten rid of his aging as well. It's de-aged him again, so that's convenient. But I thought that was quite funny when all the soldiers flipped open their masks and the Doctor was there. That was a moment where Tom Baker's performance did seem a little bit better. He seemed to be a bit more uplifted and happy in that moment. But yeah, that was cool. Finally, Pangolin is turned into a baby, and the machine finally worked. Yes, the machine's worked. He's turned into a baby. The leader, the woman leader, who was pretty much on death's bed, goes into the machine, and it works for her as well. She's now really young again. So the machine works. They can, fix themselves again. The Pharmacy are kind of, I think, peaceful at the end of this as well. They weren't actually really trying to kill people, although they did kill a few people, so I'm not 100% sure what was going on there. It's like, oh, they're actually good, but they have done some bad stuff throughout this episode, but we'll just forget about that. But yeah, in the end, the machine worked, and everyone's happy, I guess. So that is the Leisure Hive. What did I think about it? It wasn't great. It wasn't great. A lot of people have absolutely crapped on this story, and I mean, I wouldn't say it is the worst story I've ever seen. I think there are worse in the classic series as well, although maybe it's just because I've not watched those for a long time and I've been very sporadic with my classic watching lately. Maybe it's a little bit out of whack, but I don't think it's the worst classic story ever, but it's definitely one of the worst classic stories ever. For the moment, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, maybe a little high. I know some people give this like a 1 or a 2 out of 10. I was contemplating maybe a 3, but ultimately, yes, the vibe isn't great, the general story isn't that great, the villain isn't that great, the Pharmacy are pretty crap, and it's just not that great. Although there are episodes that I think have all those issues, plus they're way too silly and way too just all over the place. This one is a bit boring, there's not a lot going on, but it is at least watchable. It's not too, it's not something like Time of the Rani or the Twin Dilemma where it's just ridiculously stupid. It's just a bit naff. So yeah, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.